Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Back deep divers. Today we are going to dive into something I'm sure we all think about more than we'd like to admit, and that is aging.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at a study from the Journal of the American Heart Association that found some pretty interesting connections between heart health and something called biological age.
Okay.
We all know our chronological age.
Right.
But apparently there's this whole other age that our cells are keeping track of.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is possible to be like 40 years old chronologically, but have cells that are acting like they're 30.
Or 50.
Or 50, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's so fascinating about this idea of biological age.
Right.
It's not just about how many candles are on your birthday cake. It's
Right.
really about how well your body is functioning at a cellular level.
So two people could be the same age, like calendar age, but one person's body might be aging faster than the other.
That's exactly it. And this study found that a big part of that difference comes down to how well people are sticking to something called Life's Essential 8.
Life's Essential 8.
Life's Essential 8, yeah.
Okay, what's that all about?
Well, it's basically like a checklist for heart health.
Oh.
It includes things like eating a healthy diet,
Okay.
getting enough exercise, not smoking,
Yeah.
managing your weight, keeping your cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood sugar in check.
Mm.
And, oh yeah, getting enough sleep.
So basically all the things our doctors have been telling us to do forever.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But what makes this study so interesting is that it shows how these healthy habits aren't just good for your heart.
Uh-huh.
They can actually impact how quickly you age on a cellular level.
I mean, that makes sense, but how do they even measure something like biological age?
Yeah, so
It seems like a pretty complex thing to quantify.
it is.
Yeah.
And that's where this thing called DNA methylation comes in.
Okay, DNA methylation.
DNA methylation, yeah.
Break that down for me.
Basically, it's a process that affects how your genes are expressed.
Oh, okay.
You can kind of think of it like a dimmer switch for your genes.
Mm.
So, you inherit a set of genes from your parents.
Right.
But those genes can be turned on or off or somewhere in between, depending on a lot of factors.
And DNA methylation is one of the things that controls those dimmer switches.
Exactly. And what this study found is that your lifestyle choices, like how well you're following Life's Essential 8, can actually influence those DNA methylation patterns.
Whoa, wait. So you're telling me that what I eat and how much I exercise can actually change how my genes are expressed?
That's what the research suggests. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
That is really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the genes you're born with.
Right.
It's about how those genes are being influenced by your everyday choices.
Exactly. You have more control over your aging process than you might think.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So if you're taking good care of yourself, are you essentially slowing down your biological clock?
That's what this study is pointing to.
Okay, so let's get to the results then.
Yeah.
How much of a difference did they actually see in people who were following Life's Essential 8?
Okay. So they followed thousands of adults for over a decade.
That's a pretty extensive study.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And they found that the people who scored high on that Life's Essential 8 checklist,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they were doing well in most of those areas,
Okay.
were biologically younger.
Okay.
They had a lower risk of heart disease and stroke, and they even lived longer overall.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the results were really remarkable.
So it seems like this Life's Essential 8 thing is a pretty big deal.
It definitely seems to have a significant impact on how we age.
Did they find that some of those 8 factors were more important than others?
Well, it's not that any of them are unimportant. I mean, they all contribute to overall health.
Yeah.
But they did find that maintaining a healthy weight,
Yeah.
controlling blood sugar, and not smoking had the strongest link to a younger biological age.
Okay, so those are the big 3.
You could say that.
Yeah.
But it's really about finding a balance across all 8 areas.
Now, here's something I'm wondering about. We hear so much about genetics playing a role in how we age.
Right.
Did this study address that at all?
It did. And that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So they also looked at people who were genetically predisposed to aging faster.
Oh, like people who might say, oh, it runs in my family, I'm destined to age quickly.
Exactly. And what they found was that those Lifestyle choices, that life's essential eating, actually had an even bigger impact on those folks.
Hold on, are you saying that if you're genetically predisposed to aging faster, making healthy choices could actually matter even more?
That's precisely what the research suggests. It's like you
Yeah.
can actually counteract those genetic tendencies to some extent.
That's amazing. So how much of a difference did they see in that group?
All right, so for those folks who were genetically predisposed to faster aging, sticking to life's essential 8, and particularly its effects on DNA methylation, led to a 39% reduction in the risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
Wow, 39%. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's almost double the reduction they saw in the overall study group.
That really underscores just how powerful those lifestyle choices can be,
Absolutely.
especially if you're working against some genetic predispositions.
And it gets even better.
Okay, there's more.
Yeah. They also saw a 39% reduction in the risk of death from cardiovascular disease in that group.
Okay, so they were not only less likely to develop heart problems, but also less likely to die from them.
Exactly.
That's huge.
But the most astounding finding was the 78% decrease in their risk of dying from any cause.
78%. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like those healthy choices were rewriting their genetic destiny.
It really challenges that whole idea that our genes are our fate.
Right. So it's not about surrendering to your genetics, but about making choices that can dramatically shift your health outcomes.
That's the takeaway. But we do need to be a little cautious when interpreting these findings.
Oh.
Every study has its limitations, and this one is no exception.
Okay, so what are some things we should keep in mind?
Well, for one thing, this was an observational study,
Okay.
meaning they observed patterns, but they can't definitively prove that those healthy choices caused the younger biological age.
So there could be other factors at play that they didn't account for.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that they only measured DNA methylation at a single point in time. Ideally, you'd want to see how those patterns change over time as people make these lifestyle changes.
Makes sense.
And another thing to consider is that the participants in this study were predominantly of European ancestry.
Okay, so we need to be careful about generalizing these results to other populations.
That's right. More research is needed to determine if these findings hold true across different racial and ethnic groups.
Absolutely. Diversity in research is crucial for ensuring that everyone benefits from these kinds of discoveries.
I completely agree.
Okay, so we've got some caveats to consider.
Yeah.
But even with those limitations in mind, I think this study provides some pretty compelling evidence.
I agree. It's some of the strongest evidence to date that those heart-healthy habits can truly impact our biological age.
And potentially slow down the aging process and reduce our risk of disease.
That's the exciting part.
It really is.
Yeah,
But I have a feeling some listeners might be feeling a little overwhelmed right now.
probably. Yeah. Life's Essential 8 might sound like a lot to take on.
Right, like where do you even begin?
Well, the key is to start small and focus on progress, not perfection.
Okay, so baby steps are encouraged.
Absolutely. Don't try to change everything overnight. Choose one or two areas where you feel like you could make some improvements and start there.
So maybe someone decides to focus on getting more sleep or eating more fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. Those are great places to start.
And those small changes can really add up over time.
They can. It's all about consistency.
It's about building those healthy habits into your everyday life.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about making sustainable changes that you can stick with long term.
I like that perspective.
Yeah,
It takes the pressure off and makes it feel more achievable.
it does.
So we're not aiming for flawlessness. We're striving for consistent effort towards a healthier and more vibrant life.
Well said. And remember to celebrate those small victories along the way.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
We tend to get so focused on the end goal that we forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
that's so true.
So be kind to yourself. Focus on making those sustainable changes and celebrate those wins, no matter how small they might seem.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
I think that's a great note to end on for this part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up completely, I have one more thought to share with our listeners.
Okay, I'm listening.
You know, it's really amazing to me that we can kind of sum up something as complex as aging with a checklist like this life's essential 8.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable.
Makes you think about what other aspects of our health we could maybe measure in a similar way.
Yeah.
Like, what if there's a life's essential 8 for brain health or for immune function?
Right. There's so much we still don't know.
But it is kind of cool to think about, like, what if we had these roadmaps for different areas of our health?
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
But for now, I guess we'll stick with what we know,
Yeah.
which is that taking care of our heart seems to have these ripple effects.
Right. It's not just about preventing heart attacks. It's
Yeah.
about overall well-being.
It's like that butterfly effect thing,
Yeah, exactly.
Like even small changes can have these huge impacts down the line.
Well, in a way, this study is kind of like a real-life example of that. Making these small changes to your lifestyle can lead to these big differences in how you age.
It's like those healthy habits are setting off a chain reaction of positive changes throughout your whole body.
It's a great way to put it.
So instead of getting bogged down in like obsessing over every little detail,
Right.
we should be thinking bigger picture.
Totally agree.
Thinking about creating a lifestyle that supports healthy aging overall.
And that's really what Life's Essential 8 is all about.
Yeah.
It's not just a list of rules.
Yeah.
It's more like a guide for living well.
But even with a guide, it can be tough,
Yeah, for sure.
There's so much information out there about health and aging.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
It can be really hard to know what to focus on.
Right, like, is this new diet the key to longevity?
Yeah.
Or is this supplement going to make me live to 120?
Right. There's always some new fad or some miracle cure being promised.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so valuable about research like this.
Yeah, I agree.
It gives us some solid evidence to base our decisions on.
Right. It cuts through all the noise.
Yeah.
And gives us some clear guidance on what actually matters.
So it's not about chasing those trends. It's about sticking to those fundamentals.
Exactly. The things we already know are good for us.
Okay, so let's get practical for a moment.
Okay.
What are some tangible steps that our listeners can take to start incorporating Life's Essential 8 into their lives?
Well, I always say, don't try to do everything at once.
Yeah.
Pick one or two areas where you think you can make some improvements and start there.
So like maybe someone wants to improve their sleep.
Exactly. Maybe they could start by establishing a regular sleep schedule, making sure their bedroom is dark and quiet.
Yeah, create a relaxing bedtime routine.
Right, all those good sleep hygiene practices.
What if someone's really struggling with their diet?
I would say focus on adding rather than subtracting.
Oh, I like that.
So instead of restricting yourself, try incorporating more fruits and veggies into your meals.
Yeah.
Experiment with new healthy recipes.
What about exercise? Any tips for people who might be feeling a little intimidated by that whole thing?
I think the key is to find something you actually enjoy doing.
Oh, yeah. That makes a big difference.
It doesn't have to be all about going to the gym. It can be dancing, gardening, hiking, whatever gets you moving.
Yeah, find something fun.
Exactly. And remember, it doesn't have to be hours and hours.
Right, every little bit counts.
Even a short walk every day can make a big difference.
We've been talking a lot about the physical aspects of Life's Essential 8.
Yeah.
But what about the mental and emotional side of things?
That's a really important part of the equation, too.
Absolutely.
Our mental and emotional well-being play a huge role in how we age.
So things like managing stress and having strong social connections.
Exactly. Those things are just as important as diet and exercise.
It's all interconnected, isn't it?
It really is.
Our minds, our bodies, our emotions, it's all one big system.
And this study really highlights that.
Hmm.
It shows that we need to be taking care of ourselves on all those levels if we want to age well.
Now, one of the things that I found really inspiring about this research is that it shows it's never too late to make positive changes.
That's so true.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking, oh, I'm too old, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right, like the damage is already done.
Yeah, but this study shows that that's just not true.
No, it's not.
No matter your age, you can still make choices that will impact your health.
And your longevity.
It's about embracing aging as a process, not a finish line.
I love that. It's about making the most of every stage of life.
Exactly. And even if you haven't always made the healthiest choices in the past,
Right.
you can still turn things around.
Absolutely. It's never too late to start prioritizing your health.
It's about focusing on what you can control,
Yeah.
not dwelling on the things you can't.
I agree.
Okay, but let's be real.
Right.
Change is hard.
Oh, it can be so challenging.
So what advice would you give to our listeners who might be struggling to make those healthy changes stick?
I think the most important thing is to find what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Some people do great with really structured programs,
Okay.
while others need more flexibility.
Yeah, it's about figuring out what fits into your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Experiment with different strategies. Find what you enjoy and what you can stick with.
And don't be afraid to ask for support.
Yeah, that's key. Having a support system can make a huge difference.
Whether it's friends, family, a therapist, or a healthcare professional.
Absolutely. Don't try to go it alone.
So it's about being patient with yourself, finding what resonates with you and making those changes a part of your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's it. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
And it's a journey we can all take together.
Speaking of taking things together, I'd love to hear from our listeners.
Yeah, me too.
What are some of the challenges you face when it comes to making healthy choices?
Right. What works for you? What doesn't work?
And what strategies have you found helpful for sticking with those changes?
Yeah, let's share our experiences and learn from each other.
Because remember, even if you stumble along the way, you don't have to give up.
That's so important.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Well said. And every step you take towards a healthier lifestyle is a step towards a brighter future.
Okay, I think that's another good stopping point.
Okay.
But I have one more thought to share before we finish up this deep dive.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So this whole conversation has really gotten me thinking, if we could actually rewind our biological clocks, like if we could go back and do things differently,
Yeah.
what would we change?
That is a great question.
Would we focus on different aspects of our health?
I mean, it really makes you think.
It does.
Like, would we make different choices knowing what we know now?
Yeah, and I wonder if the answer to that question would change as we get older too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe a younger person would be all about building those healthy habits from the start.
Right.
But someone who's a little older might be more focused on slowing down the aging process.
Yeah, like damage control.
Yeah.
It's all about perspective, I guess.
But no matter what age you are,
Yeah.
the point is that we have the power to make choices
Right.
that support our well-being.
Exactly. We're not just passive bystanders in this whole aging thing.
Right. We have some control over how it all plays out.
We do, and that's what I find so empowering about this research.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we have agency, We can make decisions that shape our health and our longevity.
And that brings us back to life's essential 8.
It always comes back to that, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's not just a checklist.
Yeah.
It's a framework for living a longer, healthier, more fulfilling life.
And it shows that even those small everyday choices
Yeah.
can have a big impact in the long run.
Like what you eat, how much you move, how well you sleep.
How you manage stress.
All of those things contribute to the bigger picture.
But, even with all this knowledge, even if we do everything right, there are going to be times when we face health challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
Life throws curveballs. We can't always control what happens to us.
But we can control how we respond.
That's a really good point.
And it's all about resilience, about adapting to those changes and seeking support when we need it.
And remembering that even in the face of those challenges,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
There is always hope.
So to wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I have one final question for our listeners.
Okay, shoot.
If you could choose just one thing from life's essential 8 to really focus on right now, what would it be and why?
That's a tough one,
It is.
but it's a good one to think about.
Because it really forces you to prioritize
Yeah, it does.
and to figure out what matters most to you.
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer.
It's about finding what resonates with you personally and taking those first steps.
Exactly. And those small steps can lead to big changes over time.
That's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive.
Small steps, big changes.
So thank you for joining us on this journey of exploring heart health, biological age,
And the power of lifestyle choices.
We'll see you next time for another Deep Dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.